Information you're getting today is the kind of information that could save a life. It could be your own life, it could be somebody who's a random stranger, or it could be somebody extremely close to you. So please make sure you're paying full attention. In addition, the information being presented today is quite sensitive. We communicated ahead of time that if there's any students that this would, to use the term trigger warning, that this could be extremely sensitive for you, then you could leave the auditorium and go to the counseling office for the remainder of the assembly. So with no further ado, Fentanyl Fathers are our presenters today, along with the Alliance of Coalitions. Fentanyl Fathers is a Michigan-based nonprofit of bereaved fathers whose mission is to bring awareness to the dangers of fentanyl and counterfeit pills to young people like you across the country. They have done over 150 high school and middle school presentations, including your friends at Northern and Western last week, reaching over 75,000 students. With no further ado, let's put our hands together for Fentanyl Fathers. Thank you.
Okay. I always start presentations this way. You're going to roll your eyes, but I think at the end of it you'll agree with me. This could easily be the most important 45 minutes of your school year. We're going to bring awareness to you about something that is claiming more lives of young people than anything else out there. So let's start with a question. And let's think about this. I don't want to hear anybody yell a million, but let's just think about this and give me an answer. How many people you think die of fentanyl poisoning in a single day in this country? Go ahead. 200?
100. 100.
All right, let's see. Okay, that's a big number. And that's every single day. 365 days a year. That would be your entire student body in less than a week. My name is Michael Gillette, and exactly 3 years ago today, my wife and I found my oldest son, Brian, dead on his bedroom floor. He died of fentanyl poisoning. This is not unique to my family. It's not unique to Jack's family. We lose over 100,000 people a year to fentanyl poisoning. 100,000. And this age group right here, you're the fastest growing age group to be affected by this drug. So this is a reality in your world. So I've spent time with hundreds and hundreds of bereaved parents since I lost my son. And we all agree on one thing, and that's that awareness is our number one weapon. I know so much about fentanyl today. I know how it kills you. I know how they package it. I know how they fool you. Most importantly, I know what it does to families. So it has become my mission, if not my obligation, to bring awareness to you folks today so that your family isn't going through what I'm going through, and so that you don't end your life by making a simple mistake. So who are we? We are a group of bereaved parents, mostly fathers who've lost a family member, child, to fentanyl poisoning. We have a member who lost both of his boys on the same day. So we're very directly impacted by this. Why do we do it? You know, my wife and I talked about this last night. She said, why did you schedule presentations On the day your son died, we would just stay in bed. It would be a terrible day. But I told her, I do it because it's important. I do it for you. It's too late for my son. You all have goals and ambitions and things you want to accomplish in your life, and I want that to happen too. So that's why we do it, and that's why I'm here today.
My name is Dominic Tierno. Since I graduated high school in 2014, I've had the great honor of directing a number of documentary films about drugs and drug addiction. Our mission is to revolutionize drug education by telling real-life stories that motivate young people to make one of the most important decisions of their life, and that's the decision to not use drugs. 2020 was the worst year for drug overdose deaths that we have ever seen. In the beginning of summer in 2020, I came across this article. A 14-year-old kid from a town I grew up in had died from what appeared to be a drug overdose. He's a smart, funny guy who, like many kids, was struggling with some anxiety issues and decided that he would turn to drugs to see if he could help himself with that. What happened was he went and bought this pill, this Oxycontin pill, from a guy he had known because he thought that pill might ease the pain of what he was going through mentally. Well, he didn't know it, but that Oxycontin pill wasn't a real Oxycontin pill. It was a fake pill. It looked just like the pill that he wanted to try, but instead of Oxycontin, it was made with fentanyl, a synthetic opioid known to be 50 to 100 times the strength of morphine. That one pill he took that night killed him almost instantly, and his mom found him dead in his bedroom the next morning. Before I can even finish that article, I'm scrolling through and I see another linked article. Not far away, around the same time, another 14-year-old dead from fentanyl. So then I go back to Google and I type in fentanyl deaths. I hit search, and then it all made sense. I saw another kid, and I saw high school students, college students, young adults, all recent, all over the country, all dead from fentanyl. And so I'm looking at that and I'm saying, these aren't just normal overdose deaths. These people think they're taking one drug and turns out they're being killed. Why have we not heard about this?
First time I heard about fentanyl was my sister busting in my house being like, don't touch anything in this room, it's fentanyl. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I have no idea what's going on right now. So most people haven't heard of this because we haven't been talking about it. Back in 2013, when it first started showing up, only about 3% of drug users were dying from it. Now we're looking at over 50% of drug deaths being attributed to fentanyl. If Alexander could have got a lesson, I wish he knew about fentanyl. I wish he understood that fentanyl poisoning is real and that every time you try something, you're playing with your life. It is pill roulette every time you try it. As a mom of a kid that was just trying to experiment, that's where it gets. As a mom of a kid that died just wanting to experiment, I wish I could just shake you and tell you and make it real for you. But I don't know how to do that. I won't be there when you're faced with these decisions. I know that if he knew the effects of his passing, it would crush him. He never intended for me to find him on his bedroom floor. He never intended for his dad to administer CPR, trying to save his life while we were waiting for the paramedics. Even his 12-year-old sister wanted to run in there and try to help do CPR, but I held her back. Alex didn't intend for me to see him wheeled away on a stretcher and put into an ambulance. Alex had no intentions of me seeing him alive.
lying on a stainless steel table, covered with a sheet with only his head showing. Alex had no intentions of me knowing what it felt like to kiss his face for the last time. The images that I'm left with of that day replay in my mind on a regular basis. Please do not put your family through this. And please, 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 I beg of you, learn about fentanyl now. You can be a very important part of saving lives.
This would be how much cocaine somebody would have to ingest to kill them. This is the approximate number of prescription pills one would have to ingest to kill them. This is the amount of heroin the average person would have to ingest to kill them. Fentanyl. You're gonna have to bring that camera up here real close to see it. This much fentanyl would kill you and I if we split it.
4 years ago, DEA in Arizona seized 0 fentanyl. This last year, we seized enough fentanyl to kill 70 million people. You're playing Russian roulette out there when you're taking these pills and you're buying this stuff off the street.
Social media has completely changed the landscape of the drug trade. Most people start by searching for what they think are prescription medications, and drug dealers respond saying that's what they have. But what you have to be careful about is what you're asking for and what you get can be two different things. And if you're buying this stuff from somebody online, their bottom line is they're just looking to make a quick buck. They don't have your best interest in mind. They'll tell you whatever you want to hear. Unless you're getting these drugs from your doctor or a licensed pharmacy in a bottle that has your name on it, you may as well assume these drugs are fake. You're not getting the real thing. Fentanyl's literally taken over the drug market. It's in everything. It's in meth, it's in cocaine. Obviously, the counterfeit pills that are out there. We're starting to see it showing up now in marijuana. The people who make this stuff, who are putting the fentanyl and everything, they have one goal: to get you hooked. Fentanyl is highly, highly addictive. They're going to trick you into thinking you're getting something you're not, to take you down that rabbit hole, to get you hooked on fentanyl and have you become an addict. Because to them, you're a customer, and you'll be a returning customer at that point. One of those times, you're going to get enough fentanyl to kill you. Alex was in her bedroom at night, getting ready for bed. She went on social media in search of oxycodone. It wasn't hard for her to find a drug dealer, and she had what she thought was oxycodone delivered to our house. One pill had enough fentanyl to kill 5 people. My daughter took half of this pill and died instantly. In an instant, my life was changed forever. My last memory of my daughter is of her being wheeled out on a gurney. I saw my daughter brought into this world, and I saw her leave this world. I have 4 daughters, a beautiful wife. Every time we take a family picture, I don't see who's there, I see who's missing. It's an odd feeling to looking forward to dying, because you know that's when your heart will be made whole again. Alex would have never wanted this. Don't do it to your parents.
It's the end of the world at the palm of my hand. If you can't come with me, I'll understand.
You have a choice. Because it is between life or death. This is no joke. You can and will die. How do I know this? I can tell you that I've met thousands upon thousands upon thousands of parents nationwide. I wish somebody had sat me down and had this talk with me about what fentanyl does to people. I didn't get that chance. You do.
You know, there's always been one main problem with the films that we make, and it's the reason why we try to keep them as real and as relatable as possible. People just so commonly think that it will not happen to them. I'm talking about great people, nice people, cool people, intelligent people with big plans for the future, big potential. Gone because of one choice they didn't know would end their life. Fentanyl is coming for anyone and everyone. So the most important message that I can give to kids, to teens, young adults, anybody, is the same old message we've heard time and time again. And that's to really get serious about not even trying a drug. You see, back when we first started, I was telling kids not to use drugs because you might get hooked, you might get addicted. Now there's not even time for that. Now it's don't try a drug because you might actually not wake up tomorrow. You might actually not get another chance. One choice is all it takes. If you don't believe that, I guarantee you, at this point, there was someone very similar to you who wished they could be here right now to look into the camera and look into your eyes and say, don't do it. Please don't do it. Please, I wish I wouldn't have done it. Don't do it. Don't risk your life. So my question for you is, are you going to listen? Or will it be your family and your friends holding your picture, wishing they could have been there to tell you?
This is my son, Alexander. He died at 14 years old from fentanyl poisoning.
This is our daughter, Jessica. She was 29 years old when she was killed by fentanyl.
This is my daughter, Alex. She was murdered at 20 years old by a drug dealer who sold her a counterfeit pill made of fentanyl.
This is my son, Daniel Joseph Puerta Johnson, killed at the age of 16 by illicit fentanyl.
This is my son.
So, pretty heavy topic, first thing in the morning. I appreciate your attention and your respect through that movie. My name is Jack Swan, and on April 3rd of 2013, I lost my only brother, Drew Swan, to synthetic opioid overdose. Our lives were changed forever. Drew was my best friend. How many of you have a sibling that you consider maybe a best friend or that you're really close with? So you guys kind of know, like, my identity as a human being and how I show up in the world as like a younger brother. It was just me and my brother growing up. We were born 16 months apart and born at Crittenton Hospital, which used to be over in Rochester, Michigan. We did everything together. I was told at a young age that Drew would hover over my crib and trying to will me to grow up and say, "Where's Jack?" first thing in the morning. And we really did do everything together into our middle school years and high school years. We were about 2 grade levels apart. When I was a freshman, he was a junior. And I just felt safe and protected. Like I always had a person in my corner. So losing him really ripped a piece of my identity that day. And I had to figure out for a long time who I was. You know, how do I show up in the world? Who do I trust? Who do I tell about this? Who do I let back into my life? And where does this love that I poured into this human being my entire life go from here? But Drew was good looking. He was a model. He was a state champion swimmer his freshman year. He was MVP of his tennis team. He had an IQ of 160. He scored college level as a 5th grader in all of his subjects. So life really seemed to come easy for him. I usually had to study for my exams. He could wake up the day of an exam and ace the test. So it just seemed like things were really simple for him. So what happened for him to come into contact and die from synthetic opioid overdose? Well, in middle school and high school, Drew started experimenting with substances. We were actually homeschooled until 5th grade, and when he went into middle school, he wanted to fit in with a crowd which started using substances early. It started just with marijuana and then some alcohol, and that became kind of, a once a month thing as he entered into high school. And then as he went into college, he continued hanging out with the party scene because our parents got divorced later on in my high school years. I kind of poured myself into athletics, and Drew kind of poured himself more into the party scene. He actually got suspended from the tennis team for getting a minor in possession of alcohol that year. And he was trying to get his life back on track. He dual majored in English and business going into college. But that freshman year, he got a sports injury. He was wrestling with a friend, and he broke his collarbone. He went to an urgent care that day, and he got his first prescription for something called Percocets, which contains a very addictive substance called oxycodone. When used correctly, it's used to treat pain, but 2 years after Drew got that first prescription, that day we found out that he had a pretty severe substance use disorder and was now addicted to opioids. It was very scary. He would go through violent withdrawal. I watched him shivering on the ground, throwing up. He wanted me to see it because he really was trying to get off the substances. It's another reason why I do these assemblies is because I want people, I want to humanize the experience of addiction. Most of the people in America today have been affected by someone with a substance use disorder or know somebody who struggled with addiction. And I know that for me, I felt a lot of shame because my brother was my hero, and I didn't want people to equate him to a number or to a disease. Because he was so much more than that. He was a human being, he was loved, he was a brother, he was a son. And eventually he wanted help. So we got him into a rehab facility in Illinois called Rosencrantz. He was sober for 1.5 years. He put together this plan that he was going to get sober down in Florida. He was working 3 jobs, one as a visual manager at a Hollister. He worked 2 restaurant jobs and he was doing very well. But one day I got a call from him saying that he was really struggling and he needed to see me. I told him that I could see him after my final exams. I was in a graduate studies program, and he said that was too late. I said, well, I don't know what to do. That's as soon as I can see you, but you can come up here, we can hang out. 24 hours later, he was dead. That night, he went with a friend, Rico, to do some apartment shopping. He, earlier that night at his sober living house, went into his roommate's medicine cabinet and pulled out a pill that was prescribed or was in a little prescription bottle, and that killed him that night. Rico noticed that things were wrong with Drew. It seemed like he was nodding out, falling asleep. His eyes didn't look quite right, and Rico thought that Drew was probably on a substance, but he dropped him off at his sober living home thinking that Drew just needed to sleep it off. Drew walked into his house that night, stumbled over, chipped his tooth, fell into his bed, and never woke up. I got the call from his friend Erwin 24 hours later saying Jack Drew's dead, which I went into a state of shock because it didn't seem real. And he said, I asked if they were doing chest compressions or trying to revive him. He said EMS was on site, and he said, no, it looks like he's been that way for a while. He was blue, and they were wheeling him out on a gurney while he was on the phone with me. And then I broke down and started crying. And then I realized that I had to tell both my parents That's a call that we never want you guys to make. We don't want that call ever to be about you, which is why we're here today and why we're talking to you about this. You know, I wish that naloxone was on site at your sober living home so that he could have been revived that day, which you're going to learn more about today. And I wish Rico had recognized the signs of an opioid overdose, because had he recognized that and gotten Drew help, he may still be alive today. So this is a slide which just highlights what a massive problem. Deaths by overdose in 2023 totaled just over 107,000 deaths last year, or 2 years ago. But the impact, if you break down deaths by category in the United States, from 9/11 attacks down to the 10-year war of the Vietnam War and all the Americans that we lost during that time, all COVID deaths under the age of 30, all people who died from global plane crashes since 2006, everyone who lost their life from childhood cancer last year, and everybody who died from drunk driving, it still totals less than the number of people that we lost from overdose last year. Mostly from fentanyl, mostly young people, which is why we want to talk to high schoolers and middle schoolers. These are some famous people who have lost their lives to fentanyl: Prince, Mac Miller, Angus Cloud. It doesn't matter if you're on Wall Street or if you're living under a bridge, fentanyl is affecting us all. So next I'm going to introduce Alexandra from the Alliance of Coalitions, who's going to talk to you more about the dangers of fentanyl and proper overdose response.
Hi, I'm from the Alliance of Coalitions for Healthy Communities. We are a nonprofit organization that works here in Oakland County, providing information around overdose prevention so that our communities can be more informed on how to respond. What we're going to do today is go through a little bit of background information on what the opioid crisis looks like. We'll talk through counterfeit pills, what an overdose is, and then how to respond if this is something that you ever do encounter. And then why we do it is we want naloxone as available as possible and the people in our communities to have the information around it. How many of you guys have heard of naloxone before? How many of you guys have heard of Narcan before? So Narcan is the name brand for naloxone. There are other brands out there, but Narcan is just what's most widely available and what we provide as an organization. And it is an opioid overdose reversal medication. It is a nasal spray that you can give to somebody experiencing an overdose, and it will reverse the effects in their system, saving their life potentially. Another reason that we do it is that there's a lot of stigma around substance use. And where there is stigma, there is barriers to people getting the help that they need. If we can have more open, honest conversations with the people in our lives and in our community, the more that they can have access to resources available to them. So destigmatizing and making this a conversation that we can just have and be open with is so crucial to this issue. Now, a little bit of background information. So our overdose deaths have been steadily increasing over the last decade. The first time we saw a reduction was in 2023, but that has been not the norm for the last decade. It's been steadily increasing, and we've even seen a rise in every category of substances causing overdose. Now, a big reason for this increase is because of counterfeit pills. They are mass-produced by criminal drug networks. They are easy to purchase, widely available, often contain fentanyl or methamphetamines, and they're even being sold on social media and e-commerce platforms. So they become incredibly accessible to our communities, but what's not become accessible is the information around them. There's a lot of people who don't have the awareness that counterfeit pills exist, so what they think they're purchasing is something legitimate, like a legitimate prescription, when in fact it's not. Now, currently, from our drug supply being seized and tested, 7 out of 10 pills that contain fentanyl contain a potentially lethal amount. So that's a 70% chance, anytime somebody is getting one of these, that they are at risk for an accidental poisoning leading to overdose. Now, this is our visual representation for a potentially lethal dose of fentanyl. It is incredibly potent in very small amounts. That's on the tip of a pencil, so if you can imagine the size of a pill, quite a bit of that substance can fit into just one pill. Now, fentanyl is 50 to 100 times more potent than any other substance out there. And I have some examples on the screen of authentic versus counterfeit. The left column, those are all authentic, legitimately made, prescribed prescriptions. And then the right column is all of their counterfeit counterparts. I show you these just to make note of how similar these look and how good they're getting at making these look legitimate so that people can be duped into purchasing them and trust that they are when in fact they're not. All right, that's the whole issue here, is that we're being tricked into believing that these are something legitimate. And we have a lot of brand recognition, a lot of brand trust here in the States. And so if we see something that looks familiar, we don't worry about it. We don't question it. And this is something that we cannot visually distinguish if it is legitimate or not. Now, what is an overdose? So what's happening in the system when somebody is experiencing this? So we have these receptors in our brains, the little orange things, and they send and receive signals to our system, all right? When somebody takes an opiate as prescribed, the opiate goes into their system and it attaches to these receptors in their brain and it blocks the signal for pain. Now, when somebody has too much of an opiate in their system, these receptors get flooded with the opiate and it not only blocks that signal for pain, but it also blocks the signal for breath, causing respiratory depression. So if somebody is experiencing an overdose, their brain stops telling their lungs to work, and then the rest of their organs are going to go as a result of that. Now, luckily, we have a reversal medication called naloxone or Narcan, and it is effective on any opiate anytime. There are no exceptions to that. And how it works is it actually has a stronger attachment for those receptors in our brains. When it's given to somebody who's experiencing an overdose, it will go into their system, it will knock the opiate off of the receptor, and then the naloxone will attach to the receptor, creating a protective barrier that allows the person to breathe again and allows those signals to resume. Now, it does not get rid of the opiate, and it only lasts for a short time in the person's system, 30 to 90 minutes. We need to know that because it doesn't get rid of the opiate, so those opiates are still floating around in their system. And when the naloxone wears off, if they have enough of that opiate still in their system, it can reattach and cause a re-overdose. So it's just something that we want to be mindful of. Now, naloxone works on any opiate anytime. It will reverse the opiate's effects. It can cause a sudden withdrawal. It does not have any psychoactive effects. It's routinely used by EMS. And then this last bit is my favorite. There will be no effect on the individual if an opiate is not present. So we don't have to be worried about diagnosing, because we're not medical professionals, right? I definitely don't want that responsibility. It's not within my wheelhouse. So if I come across somebody in my community that looks like they could have maybe had an overdose, I am always going to give them Narcan just in case. Because if they don't have an opiate in their system, it's not going to do anything at all. It'll be completely neutral. But if they do have an opiate, then I potentially save that person's life. Now, signs and symptoms of use. We want to be on the lookout so that we can be on the lookout for overdose symptoms. Personally, though, I want to be able to recognize these so I can start having those open, supportive conversations with the people in my life. A few of these are going to be nodding out, falling asleep, pinpoint pupils, may see paraphernalia, may notice changes in behavior. Somebody might be more withdrawn, not as upfront, not as honest. Now, a few of these can be explained away. So the one that we're going to focus on is the pinpoint pupils. Now, pupils react to the light environment that they're in. If I go outside on a bright sunny day, my pupils are going to get really small. And if I'm in a dark lit room, my pupils are going to get really big. Now, if somebody is on an opiate, their pupils are going to become pinpoint, and they are going to stay pretty pinpoint no matter what the light exposure is. So that's something that we can see that's letting us know that something's going on in someone's system. Once we recognize that, we're going to be on the lookout for actual overdose symptoms. So respiratory depression. Somebody might have shallow breathing or difficulty breathing. They might have gurgling or snoring noises because of that difficulty breathing. Eventually, they will stop breathing, they'll go limp, they'll start turning pale or blue. But luckily, again, we have a reversal medication. So we have 5 steps that we're gonna do to save somebody's life. How many of you guys are familiar with CPR? Brilliant. So it's kind of similar to a CPR protocol, just with the addition of naloxone. So first thing that we're gonna do is shake and shout. We're gonna check for consciousness. You can tap shoulders, you can say their name, you can yell, anything that you can do. Now, once we do that, we're gonna immediately call 911, because this is a medical emergency and we're not in the business of diagnosing. So we're gonna call 911. Couple reasons for this. How long does Narcan last in the body?
30 to 90 minutes.
Brilliant, 30 to 90 minutes. We need medical professionals on the way so they can be that point of contact. It also enacts the Good Samaritan law, which states that if you're in the process of saving somebody's life and you cause harm, you can't be held liable. They can't sue you for it. The Good Samaritan law also states that if I am using an illegal substance with other people, and somebody that I'm with starts to have an overdose, and I'm doing everything in my power to save their life, I've called 911, I'm trying to give them Narcan, doing whatever. When first responders and police show up, I will not be prosecuted or arrested for that illegal substance in my system, on my person, in the area. This is really important because we are still having overdose deaths happen because people get scared and they leave the person, because they don't have that awareness that we are protected under the Good Samaritan law. So we're always gonna call 911. Next thing we'll do is get out our first dose of nasal naloxone. It is just a little nasal spray. It looks like this. Super simple. How many of y'all have used like a saline nasal spray for allergies or something like that? All right, you guys will know what to do then. We simply take it out. We're gonna insert it all the way to our fingertips and then press the plunger once it's inserted. That's it. It's just one single dose. Once we do that, we're gonna check for breathing. If they're breathing, we're gonna put them on their side in the recovery position. If they're not breathing, we're gonna immediately start CPR and rescue breaths. Now we're gonna do that for 2 minutes, because it takes 2 minutes for this to have an effect. After that 2 minutes, if they still aren't breathing or conscious on their own, then we're gonna go ahead and take out another dose of Narcan, and we're gonna do the same exact thing in the opposite nostril. We're gonna go ahead, insert to our fingertips, press the plunger. And we can repeat this pattern as many times as needed, just every other nostril with CPR in between for 2 minutes. Once they do start coming to, we'll put them on their side and then we're gonna give them space. That way they're protected and we're protected, because this person's gonna be disoriented and not know what's going on. So we're just gonna give them a little space to kind of figure it out and use kindness and compassion the best that we can. Now, us as an organization, one thing that we do is we also do the distribution of free Narcan and supplies. We have 100 of these boxes out in our community. They all contain Narcan, fentanyl testing strips. It's a way for people to test their substances to see if it contains fentanyl, as well as med disposal bags and community resources. Also, you guys have a local coalition where it's a Hope for Life, and Adam's with us today, who has resources around this and information. And if you ever want to learn more, you can reach out to them.
This is a slide just letting you guys know how you guys can get involved with other students who are passionate about being advocates around this issue. There are student chapters called SAFE, Students Advocating Fentanyl Education, and we spoke with your principal who was very passionate about helping students to maybe set up a chapter here. If you're interested, please see him after, or reach out to SAFE and they'll walk you through the steps of how to set up a chapter at your local high school. At Fentanyl Safe on Instagram.
Yep.
Next, I want to bring up Mike to tell the story about Brian.
Okay, this is my son Brian. Brian was an amazing person. He was very intelligent, extremely outgoing. He was the guy that people would tell me would always be there. You can call him anytime. He'd take the time to talk with you, to work with you. He always say to me that music is his religion. He knew more about music than anybody I knew. Him and I go to concerts together. He would educate me on different types of music, and he had a job at Live Nation and was an audio engineer. So he was involved in some of the biggest concerts here in the Detroit area, and that was him fulfilling his dream. We had a memorial for Brian after he passed, and I heard lots of stories about his compassion, about his willingness to help. There was a woman who came up to me and said, I was contemplating suicide, and I called Brian. She called him at 3 in the morning. And he talked to her for 2 to 3 hours, talked her down. And she threw her arms around me and said, your son saved my life. I wish I could have saved his. Well, she couldn't, and I couldn't. And that's why we're here today. And I want to say, I've done 40 of these presentations this year, and I always pay very close attention to the students. Are they listening? Are they sleeping? Are we connecting with them? And regardless, I know that there's a high percentage of you sitting in this room right now saying, this has never happened to me. I'm way too smart. This only happens to other people. That's your first mistake, because that's not true. And I want to share a story with you about my son. He had a friend pass away from fentanyl poisoning, a close friend. He took it very badly. And he went to this person's memorial. And he came home. He was visibly upset, so my wife and I didn't talk to him. We waited till the next day. We sat him down and we talked to him. My wife said, Brian, don't let this be your story. And Brian looked at it and said, don't worry, I'm way too smart for this. This will never happen to me. And then he looked at my wife and he said, Mom, don't worry, I'm Superman. So my son was Superman. He died 10 days later. Nobody in this room is Superman. Fentanyl was my son's kryptonite. It took his life, and it will take yours. And we've talked a lot today about you and how we want to protect you and how you need this awareness. I want to talk a little bit about your family. I want to talk about your mom and your dad, your brother, your sister, and even your friends here. The last image I have of my son was holding his cold body. His eyelids were purple, his lips were purple. There was no life left in him at all. I carry that image every single day of my life. And I will always see it. I can't change that. When you die of fentanyl poisoning, it's over in a second. You're gone. For your parents, your siblings, your friends, their life changes forever. You have no idea. You have no idea of the pain and the regret and the guilt that we live with. Why didn't I save my son? What didn't I say to him? Did I tell him I loved him enough? It's too late now. So I want you to think of yourselves. I want you to think of your family. And I want you to carry this message with you outside of this auditorium. I want you to live by this. I want you to educate your friends who didn't have the chance to be here today. Most importantly, I'm looking for heroes in this room. I'm looking for somebody who's going to be at a party. They're going to see a friend take a pill from somebody, and you're going to stop them. You're going to talk with them. You're going to share this information with them and hopefully stop them from taking that pill. That's your mission. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time today. I hope there was value in this discussion for you. Thank you.
All right, and we're just about at the end of the assembly. We just like to close these assemblies down by, there's an ancient proverb that says, if you believe in your heart and you admit with your mouth, then you will be saved. So we like to take that and use that with our assemblies by repeating this phrase after me. I'll never try.
I'll never try.
So I'll never die.
So I'll never die.
From fentanyl. Thank you guys, and please complete that post survey sometime today. You guys have been really respectful and really great, and we want to thank you for that. I'll invite your principal back.
Students and teachers, you've been an awesome audience. Thank you for all the attention that you gave to our panel today. Just a couple of quick follow-ups. Number one, as you're walking back to class, I'd like you to text your parents. First, start with I love you. But secondly, there's a parent meeting tonight at 5:45 at Clifford Smart Middle School. Very similar presentation for your parents. Think about the power if your parents know this information as well. They spread it to their neighbors, to their colleagues at work, to other people that they know. It's really important that you let your parents know about that tonight. 5:45, Clifford Smart Middle School. Secondly, we have Narcan in this school. Does anybody know where it's located? Let me tell you, there's white boxes in the hallway. They've got 3 things in them. They've got a bleed kit, they've got an EpiPen, and they've got Narcan. There's one right out here in this hallway, and there's one down by the gym. Familiarize yourself with those, please, okay? And the last thing is, like Jack said, if you're interested in starting a chapter of SAFE, Students Advocating for Fentanyl Awareness, let me know. I'll put you in touch with somebody, actually 2 kids that are pretty cool, that'll help you out with starting that club, okay? Thank you, everybody, and we are now heading back to our second hour classes. Thank you again, great audience. Thank you.
That was some powerful stuff. Hello. Okay, we're back on a little bit.